It was January of 2017. I was 24 years old and living in Flagstaff, Arizona. That winter, I decided to take a break from everything: work, family, responsibilities. I needed to disconnect. So, taking advantage of a long weekend, I drove up to Fort Collins, Colorado, to visit an old college friend. The drive up had gone smoothly. 3 states, endless playlists, and a light heart. I had done this route a couple of times before, so I wasn't worried about being alone on the road for hours. In fact, I found the endless stretch of highway almost therapeutic. The return trip started on Sunday afternoon. I had promised myself I'd be home by midnight. I was getting close to the Colorado border, and the last real town before crossing back into Arizona was Trinidad, a small town nestled between canyons and silence. I stopped there to fill up the tank. It was the last chance before nearly 100 miles of nothing, just desert plains, a few near-abandoned towns, and an overwhelming silence. The sky was already turning gray when I got back in the car. That's when I noticed it, a dark gray sedan parked a few spots away. When I turned left to get back onto the highway, the car did the same. Nothing strange, of course, as it's a public road, but 20 minutes later, it was still there. The tailgating ME sped up. So did they. I slowed down. They matched my speed. No one tried to pass, and no matter how hard I squinted into the rearview mirror, I couldn't make out the face of the driver. Just those headlights glued to me. At first, I thought it might be an unmarked cop car. Maybe they were waiting for me to make a mistake, but they never pulled me over. No sirens, no signals. Constant pursuit. The unease started small, like a drop of water falling on the same spot of your forehead, over and over. But it grew. The highway seemed endless. I checked my phone, no signal. I had this old iPhone 4 that only worked with Wi-Fi. No service, no way to contact anyone, no one to tell. I told myself I was overreacting, that it was probably just a coincidence. But when I entered a small place called La Jolla, I decided to test the theory. I pulled into a tiny general store, still open, barely 2 flickering neon lights above the entrance. The sedan pulled in behind me. I turned off my engine, sat in. The dark eyes locked on the rearview mirror. No one got out. After several minutes, I started the car and pulled away. So did they. Still behind me, always behind me. About 20 minutes later, I crossed into Arizona. I remembered the "Welcome to Arizona" sign like it was etched in stone. It should have brought me some relief, familiar territory. But instead, it hit me with full force. This person was not a cop, okay? And they were not just heading the same way as me, okay? They were following me. The road grew darker and more isolated. I was entering the Luca Chica Plateau, an area wrapped in local legends and strange stories. People talked about roads that split and vanished, figures seen in the distance, things heard beneath the earth. I never paid them much attention until that night. Then I saw a turnout for a scenic overlook. It's one of the few places that was well lit and open. I turned sharply, hoping to shake the sedan. They turned in right behind me. This time I stayed in my car for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, breathing deeply. Then something in me snapped. Fear, adrenaline, or anger got out and walked toward the car. That's when I saw her. A woman, mid-50s, neatly dressed, hair pulled back, calm expression. "Tom, can I help you with something?" I asked. She gave a nervous little smile. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were my daughter. She has the same car as yours." I was stunned. My car had Arizona plates and was covered in travel bumper stickers. It was completely unique. No one would confuse it. "You've been following my car for almost 100 miles, I said. "And it didn't occur to you to call her instead?" She apologized again, but something felt wrong. Her eyes were calm, but the back seat of her car was shrouded in darkness. I couldn't tell if someone else was inside. I didn't say anything else. Got back in my car and drove off. My house was only a few miles down a dirt road at dead end. If she followed me there, I'd have my answer. She did. As soon as I pulled into my driveway, she did too. Then she got out of her car. She walked up to me, her voice soft, almost pleading. "I'm so tired," she said. "Would you mind if I stayed the night here? I just need a place to rest." Every hair on my body stood on end. She had driven all the way there. She had lied, and now she wanted inside. "No," I told her. "You need to leave. Right now." She opened her mouth like she was going to say something else, but then my boyfriend stepped out of the house. He'd heard me yelling. The woman saw him, froze, and then, like a switch flip, she turned, ran to her car, and sped off into the night without another word. I never saw her again. I still don't know who she was or why she followed me for so long, but to this day, when I drive through that part of the state, especially at night, I catch myself checking the rearview mirrors just to be sure. It was the summer of 2020. I was 29 years old and had just moved from Tulsa to a remote little town in Texas called Petrolia for reasons that now seem pretty foolish. I had followed a girl I had met online. I thought it was love. 2 months later, she dumped me, and I was stuck there with no friends, no family, barely enough money to get by. The only job I could find was at a gas station off Highway 79, isolated, surrounded by endless fields, not a single house or business in sight. I worked the night shift alone from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Sometimes a truck would pass by, maybe a rusty old Ford or a drunk guy wanting coffee and smokes. Other than that, nothing. Just silence. It was boring, sure, but I told myself it was fine. The pay sucked, but at least I had a roof over my head and food in the fridge. Until that one night, it was a Thursday. The sky was heavy with dark clouds, and the air was completely still. Sticky heat clung to everything. I remember I was restocking the cooler in the back, with the radio softly playing some old country station, when I heard the door chime. Ding. Froze, grabbed my phone, and walked to the counter. But no one was there. I looked outside. No cars, no one at the pumps, just silence. I figured it was the door sensor acting up again. That happened once before when the wind kicked up hard, but 10 minutes later, ding, it rang again. This time I rushed to the entrance in under 5 seconds. Still nothing. Opened the door and stepped outside. The gas station was dead quiet. Not even the sound of crickets. I went back in, starting to feel weird. As soon as I shut the door, ding, it chimed a third time. Now I was definitely spooked. Something felt off. I could feel it in my neck, my arms like a pressure building just under my skin. I walked to the security monitor behind the counter and checked the camera feeds for grainy footage, but on pump 3, there was something, a figure, a man, or at least it looked like one, just standing there, not moving, dressed in a long black trench coat, even though it was almost 90 degrees out. No car, not pumping gas, just standing. I zoomed in on the footage. His face was completely blacked out, not shadowed, just obscured, like a smudge on the lens, but the rest of the lot was perfectly lit. I looked out the front window. No one there, but on the screen, it was still standing by pump 3. Cycled through the cameras. The feed shook slightly. Then the camera began to zoom in by itself. I swear to God, my hands weren't even near the mouse. The screen drew closer and closer, until it felt like the man was staring directly into the lens, like he knew I was watching. Then the monitor went black. When the feed came back, the figure was right outside the front door. I spun around. Nothing. No shadow. No sound. Just a flickering neon above the glass. But on the monitor, he was still there. Head tilted slightly. Face still a black void. I felt frozen, My hand was on the counter, but I couldn't move. Some part of me wanted to open the door. The other part screamed at me not to. Suddenly, all the lights in the store went out. Loud pop and total darkness. After about 5 seconds, they flickered back on, and the figure on the monitor was gone. I ran to the door and shoved the emergency bar down. I didn't care if it broke protocol. I spent the rest of my shift huddled behind the counter with a flashlight and an old aluminum bat at 6 a.m. When the morning guy arrived, he found me sitting on the floor, sweating, shaking, eyes fixed on the door. I told him everything. He stared at me for a long moment and finally said, "Was it pump 3? I nodded. He sighed, said, "I wasn't the first." 2 other night guys had seen the same thing, always at pump 3. One walked off mid-shift and never came back. The other left a note in the register drawer. I read it myself. It said only, "The man doesn't ask for anything. He just waits for you to open the door." I quit that week. No job is worth that feeling, that cold, that presence, and every time I drive past that station, because times I have to head back near Wichita Falls. Pump 3 is still there, working, lit up, and I always look twice just to make sure no one's standing there, because if you see him, it might already be too late. It was the winter of 2015, and I was working as a night delivery driver for a local company in Colorado near Cannon City. I was 24 years old and drove an old gray van delivering packages between small towns, remote ranches, and scattered logistics centers. The job was simple. I picked up the load at 7 p.m. and drove for 6 or 7 hours. There was no fixed schedule. As long as everything was delivered before sunrise, it was fine. That night, it was snowing, not heavily, but steadily. The flakes fell diagonally through my headlights, and the road was completely deserted. I had just dropped off a package in a place called Bear Creek, and the GPS showed me a shortcut to head back a small side road cutting through the woods, barely more than a narrow strip of asphalt with tight curves and no lighting. Normally, I'd avoid those routes. I wanted to be done quickly, about 10 minutes down that road. I started noticing something odd. There were footprints in the snow, but not animal tracks. These were human, barefoot, and they looked fresh. I braked, looked around. Nothing, just trees and darkness. I kept driving, slower this time. Footprints got more chaotic, more erratic. Some went one way, others looped back, like someone had been pacing for hours. Then I saw something on the right, near a tree. A man, just standing there, wearing only a pair of jeans, shirtless, no jacket, no shoes. It was the dead of winter, and he stood like it was the middle of July. Arms at his sides, head tilted slightly, but his face was turned toward me. I hit the brakes. The van skidded slightly. For a second, I thought maybe he was injured or in shock. But something in me stopped. I didn't get out. I just stared at him till he slowly lifted his hand like a wave. But it wasn't a natural movement. It was stiff, like he'd never moved his arm before. Then he took a step toward the road. I floored it, took off without thinking. I drove at least another kilometer before pulling over, heart racing. But as soon as I stopped, I saw him again. He was standing on the left side of the road now. No sound, no sign that he had run or followed the van, but there he was. Same man, same posture, same blank face, still shirtless. I swallowed hard, made a U-turn, and went back the way I came. Any detour, any road, just to avoid passing him again. The GPS went nuts. The signal kept cutting in and out. At one point, it showed I was in the middle of a blank field. I kept driving for another 20 minutes until I found an intersection and rejoined the main highway. Once I reached a populated area, I pulled over next to a 24-hour diner. I walked in shaking, and ordered a strong coffee. The server, an older man with wind-burned skin and tired eyes, looked at me and said, "You took the old County Road 47, didn't you?" I nodded, still sweating. He sighed. "You should have turned off earlier. That road's not safe anymore. Been years now. People say sometimes someone drives down it and sees that man." I asked him if it was a ghost or some kind of urban legend. He shrugged. "All I know is people who see him, they change, can't drive at night anymore. They get nightmares, or they just never come back." I never went back, and even now, every time I see someone walking by the side of the road at night, I check if they're wearing shoes.